The year is 2025 and Nintendo is set to release the successor to the Nintendo Switch, named the Nintendo Switch 2. Just side note, I waited till the reveal trailer to type this just in case they did some funky shit. While the console is still a bit away, it is confirmed to be releasing in 2025, also marking the end of the Nintendo Switch. With that, I wanted to make a retrospective on the console, from its reveal to release and everything up to this point, as well as share my own memories in the middle of it as well. So if you're a new fan of Nintendo and wonder what it was like before this point, or if you're looking to relive some past memories, let's-a go! Okay. If you've watched literally any Nintendo video essay in the last 8 years, you're aware of the history of the Wii U. I won't go over it fully because it pains me to call it a failure, but at that, every single Nintendo YouTuber has made the exact same points within the story. I'd look like a big fucking fraud. I've mentioned before how annoying all those videos are going over the same points. However, I do need to talk about the Wii U just for the sake of this, so I'll try and make it unique, and I will try and make it quick. The Wii U was released on November 18th, 2012, and if you felt a sharp pain in your chest just now, that's because the console will be 15 years old this year, making it technically a retro console, at least according to what Google tells you. The console was largely seen as a failure in the eyes of the public, citing bad marketing, uncomfortable and odd controllers, and gimmicks, as well as being underpowered compared to the PS4 and Xbox One of the generation, a tale as old as time. As a result of all this, the console became Nintendo's lowest selling home console of all time. Very sad ass story. But for me personally, I didn't give a single shit about that. I love my Wii U till the end of time. I hope one day I'll get to make a video on the Wii U talking about all my experiences with the console without following everyone's same video format and layout. But speaking for me here, the console banged for me. I got my Wii U in November of 2014 and it would be a consistent playtime machine throughout the remainder of the console's lifetime. Classic title after classic title, Smash Wii U, Splatoon, Mario Maker, I can go on. It was a joyous time for little me. Now, while I was an innocent child who wasn't aware of what was deemed a success beyond my personal enjoyment, reality was that the console was deemed a failure. Nintendo did have the 30DS at the time, which sold a very respectable 75 million consoles and kept with the continuation of great Nintendo titles, though the company was still struggling. President Iwata had also sadly passed away around the time the company was experiencing profit loss, among many other things. While again they did have some bright spots with the 30DS, Amiibo, etc., things were more negative for them than positive, and change did have to come. Crazy of all, Nintendo had already started working on the next console, then named the Nintendo NX, as soon as the release of the Wii U. Nintendo's idea behind this predecessor wasn't to follow as a successor to the Wii U and 3DS, but instead to ask a question of, what kind of new experiences can we create? Instead of trying to compete with what the other companies were doing, they wanted to make it unique and hard to replicate. They had officially revealed they were working on the NX in March of 2015, a few short months before Iwata's passing. There's a lot of pinpoints you can make to the version of Nintendo that we have today, and to be honest, a lot of them are really good answers. I wouldn't say that there's one specific thing that started getting the train rolling. You could say the day they revealed the NX project as one, or even up until the Switch releasing. While there's no right answer, I wanted to highlight 3 specific instances where I noticed that there was a new era upon us. By this point in time in 2015, I was a hardcore Nintendo nerd. I would follow up on news, releases, and more beginning around late 2013, but it was definitely 2015 where I'd become fully invested. So with all these memories I have of Nintendo during this time, what did I feel were the 3 moments, and why were they impactful? The first is not a game or a device, but rather a person. This man is none other than Tatsumi Kimishima. For followers of Nintendo for a minute, your ears might have perked up hearing that name, but for those who either forgot or just aren't in the know, let me put you on to the go. This man was a savage in my eyes, truly a man of intrigue. After Satoru Iwata passed, Nintendo appointed Tatsumi as the new president of Nintendo, while also appointing Shigeru Miyamoto and Genyo Takeda as Creative Fellow and Technology Fellow, respectively. Tatsumi would still follow Iwata's general strategy, but would oversee the company for the next few years and implement other strategies as well. The best part of this was Kimishima was a man of experience. He was previously a part of Sanwa Bank in Osaka, being a part of the company for 27 years, dealing with corporate planning, international business development, corporate communications, and promotions. After that, he was asked to join Pokemon as a financial overseer for the company's American branch before becoming the president of Pokemon USA a year later till 2002. Afterwards, he was appointed to Nintendo of America, where he became president before Reggie came up. Kimishima and the changes we saw will come later in the story, but for now we'll summarize this idea. He was a man of experience, and he used that experience to his advantage. He did all this while maintaining Iwata's works, and the one arguably largest is my second moment. The example I'm going to use here is incredibly stupid, but the larger scope of it just makes sense, and that is Miitomo. Just let me cook here, I promise it'll make sense. This game isn't larger scope of the reason, but it was the first of that larger scope. The larger scope of it all, and the true second reason, is mobile gaming. For Nintendo, mobile gaming was never something they looked into. Iwata had been historically against making mobile content, fearing that it would cease to be Nintendo. But as the company was in a make it or break it mode, and with the mobile market growing, they dived into the market, and their first shot was with Miitomo. Miitomo, announced on October 25th, 2015, was a freemium title in collaboration with DeNA, a company specialized in mobile content. It was developed by the core team of Tomodachi Life, as well as supervision from Super Metroid creator Yoshio Sakamoto. The app was a conversational app where users could communicate with friends by answering questions on various topics, such as favorite foods or current interests. Kinda similar to Tomodachi Life earlier. You could use your Miis and check in with them, and also connect to social media platforms to share your experiences, as well as add your friends from said platforms. The app did prove to be a success, garnering 10 million downloads by April 2016 and raising their shares 8%. So with the new president, a new way of playing games, what would be my last reason? On July 21st, 2016, Nintendo would upload a video to their social media platforms announcing a new console. Kinda. This would be an announcement for a plug-and-play console called the NES Classic. The trailer, complete with an 80s retro aesthetic, would highlight the console's ability, which was a way to play 30 of Nintendo's best titles from the NES, was contained in a miniature version of the Nintendo Entertainment System and its controller. It was fully functional minus the cartridge slot, which remained closed, but the controller and console worked as advertised. The reason why I felt this was a changing point was because it was a sign of Nintendo willing to not only go back to previous successes, but present them in a new and fun idea, which we later learned to actually be one of their marketing strategies for the next generation. That being maximizing their intellectual property, and I feel like the NES Classic was the first time we saw this in action, even if what would come in later years would be of larger scale. With these three reasons, things were starting to look up as a fan. I would eagerly await any information Nintendo put out, including their E3 2016 presentation where they'd speak about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and announce that it would come to the next Nintendo console, the NX. Despite the dark times 2016 brought us with Nintendo's releases, you couldn't help but feel optimism heading into the next generation. On October 20th, 2016, Nintendo would officially reveal the next console, now named the Nintendo Switch. This trailer was completely different in every way to the previous. Comparing it to the trailers from the Wii U, I vaguely remember calling it more mature when I was younger. Not mature in a blood and violence way, but something more evolved and grown up. The presentation featured young adults as opposed to families and children. It featured different natural scenarios, one where people would hang out with their friends or someone solo playing on a plane or in their living room. Everything felt quick in the trailer, but able to present the hardware in its best moments. The console going from the dock and TV to a handheld, the Joy-Con seamlessly being removed from the console and put into a controller shell, the different ways to play with people, it was a masterpiece of a reveal trailer, and the questions only kept coming. I kept watching the trailer over and over again, trying to analyze every single detail to it, but just overall felt an excitement with the trailer and the future of Nintendo as a whole. The best part is we wouldn't wait too much longer, as on January 13, 2017, Nintendo would livestream a presentation giving details on the console's release, features, and games launching within the first year. We'd see titles like Breath of the Wild, that 3D Mario title from the reveal trailer, new IPs like ARMS and 1-2 Switch, Splatoon 2, among other games. The entire presentation was different from anything else they had ever done, with the soundtrack of Ken Ishii's best tracks backing the clean presentation, who I'd get introduced to from this presentation and quickly became one of my favorite artists. There would also be thorough explanations of everything related to the Switch, both by game developers and presidents of the company. This was in my opinion the best presentation or direct Nintendo has ever done, and I don't believe it'll be topped, unless the future Switch 2 Direct has anything on this. As far as the rest of the build up to launch, everything was smooth with more promotions and playtest events going around the country, but it all led up to March 3rd, 2017 when the Nintendo Switch would launch in addition to Breath of the Wild, 1-2 Switch, Super Bomberman R, Skylanders Imaginators, and Just Dance 2017. Now for a good amount of people around the world, they enjoyed their Nintendo Switches and games on launch day. I was not one of those people. Instead, my journey to getting a Switch was a little more interesting than most. I did in fact get Breath of the Wild launch day, but not on the Switch. Instead, I got it on the Wii U as we could not find a Switch anywhere. At the time, both my parents worked weird schedules and I was still a child with no bank account, so we weren't ever able to get a pre-order for it, so we settled on Breath of the Wild and hopefully being able to find a Switch soon. It wasn't a Wii situation where everyone had one and stores were constantly empty, but they were a bit harder to get at launch. Then about 3 days later, my dad grabbed the family and we drove to a GameStop by us where they magically had stock of the console and picked up one alongside Breath of the Wild again, 1-2 Switch, Super Bomberman R, and a Pro Controller. We were only able to purchase the gray model, but that was more than okay with me. I'll always remember unboxing the console for the first time and setting it up. There was just something so magical about the experience, and seeing everyone in the family amazed at the Switch will always be a great memory for me. As far as the gaming went, since I had Breath of the Wild on both the Wii U and the Switch, my dad told me to keep playing it on the Wii U while he would play it on the Switch. Then he never fucking played the game. I never beat Breath of the Wild till a few years in the future, which I did so on the Switch, but the other two games, 1-2 Switch and Super Bomberman R, I remember having a play session with my cousin that same night, which was a lot of fun. 1-2 Switch even got my mom involved in it, who also had a great time. Overall, it was a pretty successful launch, and then I didn't touch the console for an entire month after that. Okay, so let me explain. So 1-2 Switch, as fun of a time it was also only really fun that first time you got the game. Add on to that Breath of the Wild I was playing on the Wii U, and Bomberman wasn't a game I really thought to pick up, I just didn't have a reason to pick it up. All the games I wanted to play weren't out yet, and what I did have to play was on other consoles. This wouldn't last for too much longer though, as in addition to what I got when I got the Switch, we also pre-ordered Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which would launch on April 28th, and this would be where I'd begin playing the Switch much more often. I remember taking from then to the launch of the next game we'll talk about soon to get 3 stars in all the cups and all the CCs to unlock Gold Mario. I don't think I played too much online, but regardless I did have a blast going through that and trying out the new revamped battle mode. It would be the next title though that made my Switch experience begin to be from pickup every week or so to every day, and that title was ARMS. ARMS was the first title that got me to consistently play the Switch, which was all the more impressive considering that it was a brand new IP. ARMS will always be a special game in my heart, as I have a lot of memories with this. From the party crashes to the new character releases, ARMS was a hit with me. Fucking literally, it was. It was so much fun having a fighting game with motion controls, and while mostly forgotten today, it was still an amazing showcase of the Switch's range. I even played it with my sister a couple times as well, which was also really fun. So now that I had made the Switch a mostly daily thing in my life, I was just missing that one game that would make it a part of my routine. And that game would come a month after ARMS launched. Splatoon had been a game I grew to really enjoy with the first title, but it was the second title that established the game as one of my favorite series. My mom knew I had enjoyed the game, going out of her way to pre-order it for me and would often call it the Squidfishy game, and I got it on July 21st, 2017 along with the Corn and Bayonetta Player 1 amiibos. I do want to cover this game more in its own video, so I'll save a majority of my thoughts for that, but this game I do owe a lot to. The game would boost my channel back when I had streamed, doing custom games with people like Tulet Payton, Knobdog, Octica, Neon Jade, and others. If any of you happen to be watching this, shout out to y'all. I love you forever. Much appreciated. Jaden would even buy me the Octo expansion DLC, which blows my mind still to this day. I'd play this game all the time in handheld mode and stealing the dock upstairs whenever I could get the chance to. I was finally using my Switch consistently, and it would only continue with the release of Pokken Tournament Deluxe, a game that while I didn't play much on Switch, I still enjoyed a great deal. There was also a Nintendo Direct for E3 2017 that would completely blow all expectations out of the water. In addition to announcing new Yoshi and Kirby projects, there was an announcement of the first mainline Pokemon title coming to the console, and a teaser trailer for Metroid Prime 4 that would turn everything into a hype chaos cycle. It was so much fun. I remember that day exactly, waking up early to watch the presentation, record my reactions. It was a wonderful time. There was one final title to end out the year though, and that was Super Mario Odyssey. That game's launch day would be the final time my Switch would ever reside in the living room, and would instead be in my room, and I'd become fully invested in the Nintendo Switch. I do have a video on Odyssey already, but in summary, I adore this game. It really brought out the best of the Switch up to that point and wrapped up an absolute killer year. Oh yeah, and there was Xenoblade 2, but... No, I'm kidding. I'll highlight it for a bit, as actually for that year's Christmas, I'd get my first 2 Switch games for Christmas, and they were none other than Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and Fire Emblem Warriors Special Edition. What a horrible fucking Christmas. I'm playing. They have their fans, and good for them. I just personally couldn't get into either, but I do have an interest in maybe revisiting Xenoblade someday, so you never know. Time heals all wounds and whatnot. Anyways, this would wrap up an absolute killer launch year for the Switch, and 2018 seemed to be an even better year. Okay, so 2018 wasn't quite as big of a year as 2017, but it was still an overall good time. In fact, it had just about as many titles I picked up and played as I did in 2017. Kicking it off was Bayonetta 2, but I think I've done enough talk about that here, so let's move on to the 2 new games I got at the same time. Kirby Star Allies and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. As for Kirby, I did play it a few years later in the future, which I finished in 2 sittings, but honestly I think it's underrated. It's a really easy game, but I think it's a very serviceable title and one that I had a good time with. Donkey Kong was the game I played first though, and man, that was a phenomenal ass title. This was the year of porting titles to the Switch, which was good for me in this case as I had never played Tropical Freeze. Tropical Freeze is easily one of the best platformers of that decade, and the Switch port was a perfect way to play the game for people like me who missed it the first time around. It didn't come without controversy, however, as it was priced at a full $60, but for me I was fine with it. I was still a little kid, so I had that mommy chore money and all that. I didn't fucking pay for it. Going a bit back in the year, there was also a Nintendo Direct hosted on March 8th. There were a few Directs in 2017, but it was this one that really began the Direct excitement we face nowadays in my mind, and that is entirely because of one game they revealed at the end. It wasn't anything massive, it was just casually dropping the next Super Smash Bros. Title on us. This reveal was absolutely insane and would honestly make up the entirety of the year just off of its hype and subsequent trailers as well. If you have been around for a Smash hype cycle, then you know exactly what it's about. If you haven't, I'm truly sorry for you. It's a legendary experience. And there's a fucking jet passing over my house. We will wait for that to go over. This hype perhaps reached its greatest feat at E3 2018 when Masahiro Sakurai would appear to reveal the game in its entirety, going by Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, with the announcement of every fighter from every Smash title being playable as well as revealing Ridley as a playable character after years of request. Smash is one of those things you can go on for hours about, so I'll save that for another time and instead refocus back onto the Direct itself, which also revealed the new Mario Party that returned to series form and a new game called Daemon X Machina. Fun little thing to remember again if you do remember that. While I feel like 2017 had the significantly better show, I do have a lot of nostalgia for this one and 2019's as well. I remember going to fucking Ross of all places after the presentation with my grandmother who was visiting at the time, and just being on my phone the entire time looking at posts about the new Smash title. Listen, I was a bitch kid, okay? You know, no fucking family time for me. I wanted to know about Smash Brothers. Anyways, the rest of the year, which would see titles like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker and Hyrule Warriors get ported, would also see a brand new Mario Tennis game, Mario Tennis Aces. Mario Tennis Aces was the title for this console, and it was actually the best Mario Sports title they launched on the platform. The game had a lot of depth, a fun tournament mode, constant updates, adding new characters, and a whole story mode too, which marked the series' first since the Game Boy. 2018 would also see two new things Nintendo would try with the Switch, with the first being Nintendo Labo. Releasing on 420, which is really fucking funny considering what the product is, was a set of cardboard you'd build into different things such as a piano, a fishing rod, a robot suit, etc., and they'd all have interactive games with the Switch. Was it basically just expensive cardboard and a waste of closet space? Absolutely. But was it a lot of fun to build and fun for the bit that you did play it for? Absolutely. It was such a unique idea, and I hope that they try something new like this again in the future with the Switch too. The other new thing Nintendo did this year was the launch of the Nintendo Switch Online service. This at the time was really controversial, having us pay for online, which was something that had been free since the Wii days. At that not being sure the online was improved, it made a lot of fans upset, though over time would wind up being a massive bargain. For starters, the service was $20 a year, or $35 if you had a family plan. That in itself made it cheaper by over half the competition's online service. For reference, my PlayStation Plus Essential subscription, which I have on a 3-month auto renewal, costs $25 every 3 months. That same subscription for a year is $80, and that's not even mentioning the extra and premium tiers. Xbox with their Game Pass Premium subscription is $20 a month, so pricing alone it's a pretty solid ass deal. The other thing they did was include a virtual console in there, starting with the NES, which launched the same day as the service. Unlike the previous virtual consoles, this one for one didn't go under that banner, but two wouldn't require you to buy the games, instead opting a subscription-based format, giving you access to all of the games at any time at no additional cost beyond your initial Switch Online payment. This was a great addition even if you're not into retro games like myself. While the service would gain new tiers and prices in the future, the initial $20 for a year for the online NES, Save Cloud, and offers never changed. Wrapping up 2018 saw 3 more major titles, with Super Mario Party releasing October 5th, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee releasing November 16th, and finally Super Smash Bros. Ultimate launching on December 7th. As far as my experiences with each of these titles, I'd get Super Mario Party and Let's Go Pikachu for Christmas that year, and while I had fun with both of them, would play their successor titles much more. And as for Smash Ultimate, oh my god, man. Hall of Fame worthy title, plain and simple. The game had so much motion I got sick on launch day and stayed home and played the game the whole day, that's how much it moved me. The game was a wonderful time and as a result would be my most played game on Switch ever with over 2,000 hours put into it. It is absolutely due for its own video, as I don't think there'd be enough that I can say here, But again, just an amazing game, and with Joker's shock reveal as the first fighter in the Fighter Pass, it was a great way to end off 2018. Now with 2019 this year is definitely mixed in quality. There wasn't really a big hitter title outside of Pokemon Sword and Shield, yet I'm weirdly nostalgic for this year's Switch. It's not my favorite year by far, but it gives me a weird summer type vibe. I don't know how to explain it. It was probably because this was the only year I actually went outside, but what do I know? Anyways, enough of that. Let's get into what happened this year for Switch. Starting in January, they released a deluxe version of New Super Mario Bros. U, except for I say deluxe with a massive quotation on it. Of all the ports the Switch has gotten, this one is probably the most controversial due to them not adding anything beyond 2 easy mode characters and charging a full $60. For me, I wasn't bothered since my computer had actually blown up around the time that I got it in mid-2018, so while it was in repair, I was stuck with this and Captain Toad for the next 2 weeks, so all was well for me. On March 29th, they released Yoshi's Crafted World, which I would get pre-ordered for my birthday, March 11th if any of you care, and would pick up on launch day. This game for me was a bit disappointing as I was a massive Yoshi's Woolly World fan, but Crafted World just didn't click with me for some reason. I never went back and finished it, I just came away from each play session feeling like they missed the mark that Woolly World had hit. Not about the Switch itself, but worth noting that then President of Nintendo America Reggie Fils-Aimé would actually step down from his role, giving it to Doug Bowser in April 2019. The reason I mention this is to segue into the Nintendo Direct for E3 2019, making Doug Bowser's first real appearance in front of Nintendo fans, and outside of a few exceptions, was really his only appearance in Directs. As for why this is, I'm not too sure, but regardless, E3 2019 is a Direct I have a lot of nostalgia for. I'd again say that the announcement quality wasn't on par with 2017's or even the original Switch presentation, but just something about this time period really sticks with me. I remember watching the Direct, then heading to the Lagoon Amusement Park after the presentation with my mom and sister, then coming home to play Fortnite Playgrounds with my friends after. It was a great time. As for the announcements of the show, they revealed both Hero from Dragon Quest and Banjo-Kazooie as fighters for Smash Ultimate's Fighter Pass, a formal reveal for Luigi Mansion 3, which looked light years better than the first time they showed it off. Suda51 revealed No More Heroes 3 in a pretty cool trailer. Mario and Sonic got revealed, which was my favorite announcement of that presentation, really shows you where my priorities are. Animal Crossing got fully revealed as Animal Crossing New Horizons before getting delayed to 2020, and then biggest of all was the reveal of the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. All of this actually makes it sound like a really good show, and it was genuinely a good show. I just think my rose-tinted lenses prefer 2017's a bit more as a show, but as a day in my life, 2019's absolutely cooked. What also cooked was the next major title in Nintendo's 2019 lineup, which also just so happens to be my personal favorite game of the Switch's lineup that year. About 2 weeks after E3 2019, Super Mario Maker 2 released, and I played a pretty good amount of this game. To get the negative out of the way, yes, creating levels on this game is not as fun as Mario Maker 1, and the removal of the amiibo costumes is lame as hell, but beyond that, I'd say Mario Maker 2 is a better game. They added a lot of new pieces to create levels with, but additionally my favorite thing was they added online multiplayer with your friends. Now as far as how well it works, don't worry about that. Just appreciate the online multiplayer as it was a lot of fun. I've had a lot of good memories playing the online multiplayer with my friends, and going for the highest rank was also a lot of fun too. Another great thing that they added was an entire story mode as well. It's around 70 or so levels created by Nintendo, and your objective is to build back up the Mushroom Kingdom. It's a lot of fun actually, I truly enjoyed my time with it, and Super Mario Maker 2 as a whole. Moving on, in July they released Fire Emblem Three Houses, which while I'm really interested in trying out, I haven't played yet, so I'll skip over that and speak on another nostalgic day. September 20th. I'll get to Astro Chain soon. On September 20th, they released the Link's Awakening remaster. Now this day is extremely nostalgic for me because it was a day I went to my very first convention, FanX. So while that was great in itself, afterwards I went to GameStop and picked up not only Link's Awakening, but every single amiibo that came out that day, being the Link's Awakening amiibo, Snake, Squirtle, and Ivysaur from Smash Ultimate. It was easily the biggest amiibo haul I'd ever gotten in one day, and it was just awesome. As far as Link's Awakening went, I think it's just fine. It's not my thing personally, but it is a solid time. What my thing is though, is Astro Chain. I told you I'd circle back around. So while I played this in 2020, I wanted to talk about the game here because I feel like it's one of the most underrated titles on Switch. It's developed by Platinum Games, so you know I'm already locked in there, even if I have a very interesting relationship with that company. It's truly a game I feel everyone should play, both for its great action gameplay and the gameplay of exploring around the areas you travel to as well. I wanted to highlight it here, hopefully as a notion that there will be a sequel in the future, but with the current state of Platinum, that's probably not likely. As far as new things Nintendo did this year, there's 3 things I'd like to highlight, with one being a game, one being an expansion, and one being a revision. First, with the game. Ring Fit Adventure. If you remember Wii Fit from back in the day, I gotta say that for the young kids watching, then you'll be happy to know that with the Switch, they picked back up on the fitness games. This one actually has you put a wrap around your thigh where you insert one Joy-Con while the other Joy-Con goes into a circular piece of plastic that you squeeze during your game. The game itself is an RPG that focuses on your workouts to progress. It was a really creative idea, and while I prefer fitness boxing personally, Ring Fit also provides a great workout. Additionally, they also launched an expansion to the Switch Online benefits, now offering SNES titles at no additional cost. This was a great addition, gave hope for even more consoles to be added, which would come in the future. The last thing was a console revision. In September, they would release the Nintendo Switch Lite, the first true revision of the Switch. As for this Switch, it aims to be a cheaper alternative to the mainline Switch, while also being exclusively handheld. As a result of this, not only can you not detach the Joy-Cons, but you also cannot connect it to a TV. This was a pretty cool, cheap alternative for people wanting to get into the Switch, and while I'd pick up the Sword and Shield edition, I just stuck to my regular Switch. Wrapping up the year saw 3 titles released around the holiday season: Luigi's Mansion 3, Mario and Sonic at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games, and Pokemon Sword and Shield, as well as see Terry Bogard get revealed and released in Smash Ultimate. As for Luigi's Mansion 3, this game I'm also mixed on. On the one hand, I think the game is a visual treat to the eye and probably the best looking game on the Switch to date. The characters are fun and the idea of it being in a hotel was really cool. On the other hand, when I played it, I just didn't find the same excitement as I thought I was going to. It has been some years since I played this, so a replay is absolutely needed, but I often felt like it was dragged out too long with the levels in the game. Now, as for the coolest part of the game though, it was actually the release of the game itself. The game launched on Halloween that year, which made for an incredible launch day, but the Halloween aura went away since the next day was the start of November. But maybe that was what contributed to my disappointment. Now, a game I'm confident in saying isn't all that is Mario and Sonic, which would be the final iteration of the Mario and Sonic Olympic Games. Tokyo was disappointing because they really didn't put any of that Mario and Sonic spice into it. No dream events, no London party, not even the Rio tournament style format, nothing. It was quite literally the sports, a forgettable story mode, and that was it. As for Pokemon Sword and Shield, which released on November 15th, I gotta be honest with you guys, I actually quite enjoyed these games. Perhaps it's because this is what I played when I was going through a breakup, but I don't fucking know. I think it introduced a lot of cool ideas, and not to mention the cities were some of the best looking in the series. I think the gyms being stadiums was my favorite change. I thought that was some serious shit. It was pretty lovely. That was the Switch's 2019. Not the craziest year in comparison to the last two, but it did have plenty of good moments and laid the foundation for 2020, which was going to be the biggest year yet, and that technically happened, but not how you imagine it. Off of what I was gassing it up to be, you'd think 2020 would be some legendary year with major releases, except for the world kinda got turned upside down. COVID hit the world and caused everything to be switched up. Fucking classic. Literally within every aspect of life, including the development for the Switch. As for what they were going to do, honestly, who knows? Around the time it was rumored that a new model or a more powerful Switch was releasing, and beyond Animal Crossing, we had no idea of what was going to happen for the Switch, but COVID happened in March, so we still have 2 months to cover. As for what happened in those 2 months, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Dr. Kawashima's brain training, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, anyone? What about Byleth and Smash? Okay, let's go to March. March, let's paint the picture. COVID sweeps the nation and the world shuts down for a good amount of time. I would say it started around March 11th, which, fucking course, right? So just when everyone was in the same panic state, a little shimmer of light would come through, and it was called Animal Crossing New Horizons. To say this game was a big deal would be an understatement. This was probably the biggest game for the Switch in terms of popularity and discussion, because everyone was locked in, everyone was playing the game, and it was genuinely comforting. This was my first Animal Crossing game, and while I'm aware of the complaints longtime fans have, I don't give a fuck. I had a really good time with it. Being able to play with your friends in such an uncertain time, it's a tale as old as time, but it was truly meaningful and important here. Doing the stock market every Sunday, trying to get the skyscraper wallpaper, I had a whole wedding in this game. There really wasn't any limits to fun, whether you time traveled or played it day by day. It was just a great time and made the tough times a bit easier to take on. So that was Animal Crossing, but again, we didn't know much beyond that. That's where our news source for the rest of the year would come in: shadow drops. Nintendo did a few directs, calling them minis or partner showcases, but the primary way of giving us news this year was through just randomly dropping it onto their social media channels. It felt like about every single announcement they had this year outside of the Mario Direct was just kinda shadow dropped on us, so instead I'll just talk about the releases as we go through here. So Xenoblade came out in May 2020, and good for those guys, I guess. Not my game, but whatever. What my game is, though, is the fucking GOAT, Clubhouse Games. My god, this game is something special, man. One of the things I picked up during the pandemic Mimic was an ungodly ability at Mancala, and in addition to the 50 other titles featured in this, there's all kinds of tabletop games. You got Mancala, which is of course my personal favorite, checkers, pool, blackjack, I can go on. It's all kinds of games, and you could also play with your friends online, something very needed given the time. I love Clubhouse games to death. In June, we'd see Min Min get revealed and released into Smash Ultimate, which was a fun time as well. Though moving on to July, they released a whole new Paper Mario game called Paper Mario and the Origami King, and you know what, actually from what I played of it, I enjoyed it a pretty decent amount. It still has its problems, and I couldn't put myself to stick through with it because I usually don't enjoy RPGs as is, but this game for what I played was very enjoyable. Good writing, beautiful visuals, not the worst gameplay in the world. Origami King is a solid time in my eyes. But that wasn't the only thing Mario had for us this year. Not even anywhere close, as in fact this was Mario's 35th anniversary, and with that came a slew of announcements. They released a special Mario Direct on September 3rd where they revealed Super Mario 3D World coming in 2021, a new Mario Kart game, kinda, a Mario Bros. Battle Royale inspired by Tetris 99, and biggest of all was a collection consisting of 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy called 3D All-Stars. As far as Mario Kart Home Circuit goes, I personally haven't played it, but it's a remote control car and you can build a track in your home, which is a pretty cool idea actually. It just lost its appeal fast for most people. As for Mario 35, that was a good time, but honestly God knows why they made it a timed exclusive, so once that time was up, they removed it from the eShop for good. Then they proceeded to do the same thing with 3D All-Stars, making it so past a certain date you wouldn't be allowed to buy it from stores or on the eShop. As awful a decision this was, there was plenty of copies available, so if you were around for the time, you could get the game no worries. And at that, while people do have their issues with it being a lazy job and all of that, it was very nice to have 3 of Mario's most famous 3D adventures all on a modern system in good quality. So for me, I wasn't one to complain. October would continue to be a big month as fucking Steve from Minecraft was revealed and released in Smash Ultimate, and definitely one of the most shocking reveals in Smash history. However, the absolute GOAT of that year was Pikmin 3 Deluxe. I played this game in 2024, but the port came out in 2020, so we'll talk about it here. You guys may already know this, so I'll keep it brief, but I do adore this game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. A true, joyous, jolly-ass time all around. I have an entire video talking about the game if you're curious, but other than that, in November we had Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which was a sequel game to Hyrule Warriors and Breath of the Wild. There's probably a lot of other people who can explain this better than me. I didn't play Age of Calamity, but people did enjoy it minus the story and the frame rates. Then at the end of the year, they revealed and released Sephiroth as the next fighter in Smash Ultimate's Fighter Pass, a great trailer and a shocking character. And that was Nintendo's 2020. Absolutely a weird year, no doubt, but when you actually round up all the games, it was actually a pretty underrated year. It had the same amount of first-party releases as 2019 at 14, and more than 2018 and 17s, if you can believe it. It was definitely because of the circumstances of the world then, so it made everything seem slower and spaced out, but it actually wasn't a bad year for the Switch. The best thing about it was there was diversity. RPGs, simulators, board games, platformers, there was something for everyone this year, and I think in a year like this one that was very needed. But now with that behind us and things starting to go back to normal again, how did they respond in 2021? This is going to be the 5th year of the Switch, so expectations for me and others were rather high. Kicking us off in February, we had not only the release of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, but a Nintendo Direct as well, which returned to the original Direct format for the first time since September 2019. As for 3D World, it's the best port of a game I've ever played. It's 3D World from the Wii U in all of its original glory, but with quality of life improvements that are game changers. From the stamp coloring to the character speed adjustment, as well as the addition of online play, it's the best version of the game, bar none. Add on to that Bowser's Fury, basically an entire separate game, it is a really wonderful time. Then the Direct itself was packed with announcements. Pyra and Mythra into Smash, a new Mario Golf, we'll get there. Famicom Detective Club got revived, Miitopia and Skyward Sword got brought over to the Switch, and the official reveal of Splatoon 3 to end off the show. It was a pretty good month for Nintendo. Moving on to March, we'd get the release of Monster Hunter Rise, which was a timed exclusive for the Switch. I had bought it ready to get into hardcore with my friends, then none of them got it, so I didn't play much. Thank you guys, y'all fucking suck. It was a really good time though, I would recommend it. Then in April we'd get new Pokemon Snap, which while I haven't played it yet, it was awesome to see them bring it back as I love the original Snap on the 64. May would be a solid month with the Famicom Detective Club games releasing, as well as Miitopia and Shin Megami 3. Then we get to June. June was quite the month for the Switch this year, starting with Game Builder Garage, which released on June 11th. I also have not played this game, but it was such a cool idea. It's like Mario Maker in how you build up levels, or in this case little games, but unlike Mario Maker, it's much more focused on game development itself, which if you're interested in that, it truly is a great step for those regardless if you're younger or older. The next major event was E3, which was held on June 15th. Other than it being an E3 presentation, it was major because it would be the final E3 presentation ever. This was E3's last year live, which is a whole other subject in itself, but it was quite sad to see that as I had loved watching E3 over the years. As for the show though, I'd say they went out with a bang. Kazuya from Tekken got announced as the next fighter in Smash Ultimate, Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, Mario Party Superstars, WarioWare Get It Together, and Shin Megami Tensei 5 all got announced. The two biggest announcements by far though were Metroid Dread, the first new 2D Metroid game in years that many fans had thought was a long cancelled project, as well as the re-reveal of the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. For it being the last E3 presentation, it was definitely worthy. Then for the last part of June, Mario Golf Super Rush came out and everyone including me was disappointed. I mean, it was Mario Golf, but it just lacked a lot of substance and replay value, but it is what it is, I guess. July would also be a solid month with Monster Hunter Stories 2, Skyward Sword HD, and Pokemon Unite releasing. I can't talk about the first two since I haven't played them, but Pokemon Unite, man, that was a great time. I was hooked on Unite for the first few months it released. It was about all I played. There was just something so addicting about it. It wasn't even the best game, but it was just able to hook me in even though the costume prices were complete bullshit. August was a pretty quiet month though, did see the release of No More Heroes 3. September did pick it up with WarioWare Get It Together and another Nintendo Direct. This one notably gave us Kirby and the Forgotten Land, N64 and Sega Genesis to Nintendo Switch Online, the Mario Movie Cast reveal, and of course... Wait! Bingo! Moving into October, we'd see the releases of Metroid Dread and Mario Party Superstars, both excellent games in their franchises, as well as the reveal and release of Sora as the final fighter in Smash Ultimate. From what I played of the Dread demo, I did have a very good time with it, and Mario Party took another step in the right direction with this entry. Additionally, in October, we'd also see the release of the Nintendo Switch OLED model, which is the second and final Switch revision. The only true difference here is the OLED screen, which as an owner of it, I will say is really nice to have, even if I don't play it in handheld much. The screen is beautiful and really makes every game pop. But then to end it off this year in November was Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which caused a lot of controversy for being lazy and not including basically all of Platinum. However, I will always appreciate it for finally giving me my shiny Lugia. And that was Nintendo's 2021. Overall, it was a much more exciting year than 2020 for obvious reasons, and did do a good job at being a great fifth year. Directs returned to normal, game releases were consistent, and had something for everyone. However, I believe the following year was even better. 2022 was probably in my top 3 favorite Switch years. There was so much to look forward to. It all started off on January 28th with the release of Pokemon Legends Arceus. This game marked the first fully open world entry in the series, and a majority of the people really seemed to enjoy it. A tale as old as time, but I own it. I haven't played it though. I do look forward to doing so in the future. As for February, while there weren't any significant games released, there was a Nintendo Direct. This one was also pretty packed with Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, Salmon Run and Splatoon 3, and Earthbound to Nintendo Switch Online all being revealed. As for the bigger titles here, there was no shortage of that either, as this Direct housed the reveal of a new Mario Strikers game, a new Wii Sports title now going under Nintendo Switch Sports, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp got revealed and announced at the time for April 8th, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 got revealed, and the biggest and most exciting in my opinion, after years of asking for it, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe finally got DLC in the form of the Booster Course Pass. This Direct was loaded with great announcements, and March would keep the momentum going. In March we would get both the first wave of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course tracks, as well as the release of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. As for the Booster Course Pass, while every wave after the first is better in my opinion and the controversies with how it looks are there, I absolutely love this and the rollout of all the other waves too. It was so refreshing to finally get new tracks to play after years of waiting. Then with Kirby, what a damn good game. Kirby's first time being in full 3D was a true treat, and Kirby blended with the 3D gameplay style perfectly. It was for sure one of my highlights of that year, no doubt about it. Insanely fun levels, boss battles, and a really cute hub world that connected all together. Then April hit. April was interesting for one reason, Nintendo Switch Sports. I will be on the record saying that I do actually quite enjoy this game, though its problems are still very clear. It had a big lack of sports to play, which even with the updates in the future still was not enough. At that, the updates came out way too long after aside from the costumes, which while were nice to have, were timed, so once the event was over you couldn't obtain them anymore. And they required really unfun grinding to get to. Then the game's new characters just aren't what the Miis are, though thankfully you can switch to your Mii if you do please, but that's not really what they're marketing. They're marketing these new ugly ass little characters. I'm sure I can go on, though I don't hate the game as much as other people do. At the end of the day, it's a Nintendo Sports title, it's bound to be a fun time. Hopefully they do a resorts type of game for the Switch too, which they will fix it up a little bit more, giving us new games and all that good stuff. Moving forward, May was a pretty quiet month, though June picked it up with Mario Strikers Battle League and Fire Emblem 3 Hopes. Mario Strikers was a very disappointing title for about everyone who played it, and I honestly don't know what the consensus of Three Hopes is, so not much for me there. July then saw the release of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but you can probably tell I don't have much to say on that, so in August they released the second wave of the Booster Course Pass, which was also a great time, as well as Kirby's Dream Buffet, which is a surprise eShop release and overall a cute distraction. But then on September 9th, we'd get the big fucking hitter, that was Splatoon 3. There will be plenty of words for this game, but the only ones I want to share that best explain the game and my overall opinion on it is I have over 2,000 hours in the game. Moving on a few days ahead, on the 13th would be a Nintendo Direct, which was most important in my life as it was the first Nintendo Direct I didn't watch at home because my mom didn't let me skip my first period. So thanks. Anyways, for this Direct, they'd revealed the next installment in the Fire Emblem series called Fire Emblem Engage, a reveal for Octopath Traveler 2, Booster Course Pass Wave 3, Kirby's Return to Dreamland getting a deluxe port, fucking Pikmin 4 in the middle of the Direct, and to end it off, the for real formal reveal of Breath of the Wild sequel, donning the new name of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and a release date of May 21st, 2023. Those last two announcements were jaw-droppers as Pikmin 4 had been requested for so long, while Tears of the Kingdom was just a beauty to look at. And then per usual, we'd end off the remaining 3 months with a massive burst of big games. In October, we'd get to play Bayonetta 3 and Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I've talked about a little bit of Bayonetta 3 here, so instead I'll focus on Sparks of Hope here, and this game is just, oh fuck, it's so good. Sparks of Hope took what made Kingdom Battle good and perfected it here. The combat in Sparks of Hope is so damn fire, from the first fight to the very last. It's such a good strategy game and I cannot recommend it enough. Even the weaker parts like the story are still just a joy to go and watch. I really truly hope that we get a third game from this crossover because they are just so peak. I highly recommend them. Please go and play these games. Then in November, the big title was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which while have major performance issues, were also in many's opinion some really fun Pokemon games. I only haven't played it because I'm waiting for the Switch 2 to play the hopefully better cleaned up version of the game, but I do have high expectations for it. As for December, this would see the third wave of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass release. Also a wonderful time. And that was the Switch's 2023. Overall, I'd say this was a really great year for the console. It featured Splatoon 3, Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and Bayonetta 3, so by default, it was a classic in my eyes. Not to mention all the announcements kept us fed all throughout the year, so again, I'd say it was a damn good year for the console. Then we move on to 2023. 2023 was also a pretty great year for the console. I'd say the run of 2021 to 23 was definitely a three-peat, no doubt about it. Kicking us off in January saw the release of Fire Emblem Engage, which, yes, I haven't played. At the time of recording this, I am actually trying my first Fire Emblem game, which is Conquest, and I have enjoyed it so far, so truthfully nothing against Fire Emblem, it just took me a minute to get there. Then in February, we'd get another Nintendo Direct. This one, I'll be honest, it was alright, there were some cool announcements for it though. Splatoon 3 got DLC announced for it, which included Inkopolis returning as a hub, and the story mode expansion Side Order getting teased. Disney Illusion Island, which is a fucking banger I'll talk about later. Game Boy and Game Boy Advance editions to NSO, randomly dropping Metroid Prime Remastered on us, as well as it coming out shortly after the Direct, a new damn Professor Layton game, Mario Kart's 4th DLC expansion, and another trailer for Tears of the Kingdom to end it off on. Overall, a good Direct, just not much of a banger as others. The train didn't stop rolling there though, as on the 24th we'd get Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and if 3D World was port number 1, I think this one is a contender for second place. Much similarly gave good quality of life improvements, as well as including a whole new side story campaign in Magolor. Moving into March, we saw the fourth wave of the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart, as well as Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and the Lost Demon release. Both wonderful times I will save my thoughts on for a different day, but Origins is a very underrated game. Sadly, to close out the month, the Wii U and the 3DS eShops would unfortunately close, which while sad was expected because who the hell's still buying things from there. As for April, the only game we saw was Advance Wars 1+2 finally released after being delayed due to the war that was ongoing in Ukraine, but probably also because the Mario movie released in theaters this month, and while it's not really important to the Switch, I will tell you that I liked it a great deal. Then May was the big one, as Tears of the Kingdom released on May 12th, and it's almost certainly beating a dead horse, but this game is phenomenal. I honestly think I like it more than Breath of the Wild, and that's due to the beautiful music, specifically the Sky Island tracks, as well as the better boss battles. I did really love the Sky Islands concept, even if it wasn't fully realized to its potential, though in the same breath I did not enjoy the depths much at all. What an unpopular opinion. But yeah, anyways, Tears of the Kingdom is just a glorious game, even if it shares a lot of Breath of the Wild, but they're kinda like a package deal, you can't have one without the other. Going into June, we'd see another Nintendo Direct on the 21st. In this one, they revealed the Scarlet and Violet DLC, a new Detective Pikachu, a remake of Mario RPG, a new Princess Peach game, the first since Super Princess Peach on the DS, a Luigi's Mansion 2 port, Pikmin 1 and 2 coming to the Switch launching the same day, Wave 5 of the Booster Course Pass, a new WarioWare called WarioWare Move It, and the reveal of the next 2D Mario title called Super Mario Bros. Wonder at the end. This Direct was pretty solid as well, which was nice to have consistent quality Directs so far into the Switch's life. Then at the tail end of the month, they released Everybody 1-2 Switch, which was a game. In July, we'd have the 5th Booster Course Pass release, Pikmin 4, and Disney Illusion Island. Pikmin 4 in short was another wonderful evolution for the franchise. I actually just beat this game as of recording this audio, so I still don't fully have my thoughts gathered beyond this point, but like I said, it's a wonderful, joyous, and whimsical time. As for Illusion Island, that I do have my thoughts on, and that game is a damn banger. It's not a hard game at all, but it was such a relaxing, fun time to go through. Getting the collectibles, taking in the art style, everything about the game was just fun as hell. Also, a little fun fact, this was the very first thing I bought with my first work check, so that's fun. As if the Direct in June wasn't enough, we'd get one in September as well. This Direct, in my opinion, was just alright though. It did have some cool announcements. We'd get our first real good look at Side Order, which looked amazing. We'd get a remake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, F-Zero 99, Booster Course 6 for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and to end it off, the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake. October had both Detective Pikachu Returns and Mario Wonder launch. As for Detective Pikachu, I have nothing to say, I haven't played it. Mario Wonder, on the other hand, y'all gotta hear me out. I'm truly scared to say this, but here I go. Every time I've played Mario Wonder, I have not enjoyed it. Now, with this being said, there's two major asterisks to this. The first time I tried it, I remember being tired and having to work, so I only did the first world and I wasn't feeling it. As for the second time, I was in a lot of pain from my wisdom teeth surgery and I was very drugged up. So when I saw it in the trippy visuals, I spent the rest of the night in the bathroom trying not to throw up. So this being said, while I haven't enjoyed the times with it, I'm hopeful that the third time I try will be a coherent thought so I can fully give it a fair shot. And finally, to wrap up the year in November, they didn't have anything in December. They released the 6th and final Booster Course wave for Mario Kart, WarioWare Move It, and Mario RPG. I'll touch on WarioWare since I did play this one and say that I enjoyed it quite a bit. The controls are very sensitive, but the minigames are fun and the story mode was pretty cute overall. That wraps up Nintendo's 2023, and while it was definitely beginning to slow down, there were still plenty of fun moments to be had. But now we get to 2024. This is the final year of the Switch I'll be talking about, as I don't really feel like 2025 should count with the Switch 2. And this year was honestly mostly quiet, but alas, for one final time, here's what went down. In January, we'd see the release of another Code Recollection, while February gave us the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remaster and Splatoon 3 Side Order. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a good short time overall, nothing too special, but I'm happy that they made it. But Side Order, my god, that was a great DLC. I do think Octo Expansion offers a more memorable experience, but Side Order really was a blast to run through multiple times. In March, we'd get Princess Peach Showtime, which is a wonderful game to get young audiences or first-time gamers into Nintendo with. Then in April, sadly, the Nintendo network for 3DS and Wii U was shut down, marking pretty much the final nail in the coffin for both consoles. Anyways, May would see the release of both Endless Ocean Luminous and the Thousand Year Door remaster. Endless Ocean disappointed a lot of fans, but thankfully for the first time since the original game's release, a majority of Paper Mario fans were happy with this one, so that's good to hear. June gave us the release of Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which was nice to have on Switch for sure. Then in June, we'd get one last Nintendo Direct for the Switch. This Direct, in a weird way, felt like a swan song for the console. It wasn't anything too crazy, but like always, there were some good things. It opened with a reveal of a brand new Mario & Luigi title called Mario & Luigi Brothership. Donkey Kong Country Returns got a port to the Switch. A new Zelda title in the style of the Awakening remake, which starred Zelda as the main character for the first time ever. And finally ending it off with the formal reveal of Metroid Prime 4 after 7 years of waiting. Then in July, we'd get two things. The first was the Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, which was a cute little game, although it didn't have quite the same effect as NES Remix. The other thing we got was what the fuck? In what was honestly one of my favorite things Nintendo has ever done, they dropped this really weird, creepy trailer that sent the internet ablaze in July. There's just something about this trailer that had me hooked so much. Maybe it was because I was really into Silent Hill around this time, so anything Nintendo could do that was anything similar was needed. But the trailer was just so unique from the Nintendo way, and I'd be heartbroken to find out that it was for a Famicom Detective Club game. Okay, maybe heartbroken is a little bit too far. The Famicom games are pretty good, but for that awesome teaser trailer to just wind up being one of these games was definitely disappointing, I'll admit. However, from what people have said when the game released the following month, it was a really good time and a worthwhile game, so it's definitely on my list for sure. As well, in August, they'd have the Nintendo Museum Direct, which is absolutely on my bucket list of places to see. Moving to September, we'd have The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom release on the 26th, which was a good time for those who played it. But then in October, we'd have a pretty eventful month. This is probably the last crazy month for Nintendo and the Switch's life cycle, and it started off with the reveal of an alarm clock. Alarma was revealed and released to us in October, and I personally love this little thing. It's entirely a novelty, it's an expensive alarm clock that can track your sleep and all that, but it's still such a cool, innovative idea that I'm so happy I own. The next thing was actually a bombshell, and that was Nintendo Music. This app was a massive reveal for me, as I've been hoping for a good way to listen to Nintendo music for years now. It does have its issues, mainly the release schedule of music, but it's still a really nice thing to have. Then finally, Super Mario Party Jamboree released, and while I talked about it in my Games of 2024 video, I'll briefly say that this game is a wonderful time and is easily the best Mario Party on Switch, and potentially of all the games, if not in the top 5. Then finally on November 7th, Mario and Luigi Brothership would be released. Now I have not played this game, but I know 2 people who have, my lovely friend Edgar and my lovely mother, who both seem to enjoy the game for the most part, so that is great news. And that was the Switch's 2024 and final full year. It wasn't anything too crazy, as things became clear that the next system was upon us, but I think it's a fairly fitting end to a great life cycle. And that was the Nintendo Switch. I think overall this is their best console by far. Countless classic titles and moments were constant with the console, and it both helped through tough times and introduced me to a lot of new great ones. I met so many wonderful people through games like Odyssey, Splatoon, and Smash, among other things. It helped kickstart my channel to new heights 2 separate times back in 2018 through 2019, and in the current day. The Switch still feels so fresh to say this, but it will always have a special place in my heart. The craziest thing about it is the console is now 8 years old, 2 years away from a decade, so maybe it's not that far-fetched to say. To end this off though, I wanted to give my ranking of every year of the Switch, from the worst to the best, as well as hear from you guys. Me personally, I would rank it 2024, 2019, 2020, 2018, 2023, 2021, 2022, and then 2017 is the best year of the console. Real popular opinion, I know. But anyways, now I'd like to hear from you all. What are some of your favorite memories with the Switch? I'd love to know down below, as well as what you thought of the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.